shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new.
I'm Assistant Chief Jim Eden.
And I'm Battalion Chief Ben Hicks.
And today we're at Lee Summit Fire Station 3. Fire Station 3 was part of the 2016 no tax increase general obligation bond for public safety initiatives. The station was built and occupied in August of 2020. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we've not been able to give tours or have an actual ribbon cutting. So we want to invite you in today to give you the opportunity to see what goes on within the Lee Summit Fire Department station.
Let's go take a tour. This is our admin side of the facility. We use this side mainly for offices. We have a lot of work during the day, whether it's training or doing reports or just generally taking care of the shift that we need to do. At this particular station, Station 3, we do have an assistant chief that works out of here. That person has their own office where they need to manage what's going on throughout the day with the shift and staffing, and as well as running calls out of here. The captain has their own office as well. What the captain does is at this specific station is in charge of both the fire truck that's here as well as the ambulance. And so with all those personnel responsibilities as well as running calls and reports, that's where they work out of. And generally for the rest of the crew, which is somewhere around 5 to 6 individuals, we have rooms to write reports, and we have additional training rooms and other rooms where people can work. Walking into our living area, I think it's important to recognize that we work 48-hour shifts. So in the evenings, after 5 o'clock, after work is done, we may have the opportunity to catch a game or something else as long as we're not running calls. And this gives us the opportunity to do that. When we go into our kitchen, I think this gives you a great reason to know why we go to the grocery store. When you see fire trucks at the grocery store, what we're doing. Also, for 2 days working for 48 hours, we buy all our meals at the grocery store, and then we come in here and cook, just like you guys do at home. So everybody has their own fridge on each shift, as well as their own pantry, and then we cook those meals here. Going into the sleeping side of things, we've got a couple different things that are significant. We have our own laundry room, which again is important when we're here for 48 hours. The opportunity to wash and clean our clothes and bedding is very important for hygiene. And walking into where our beds are, we keep the kind of sleeping quarters over on one side of the building. It gives us both easy access out to where our fire apparatus are, as well as kind of keeping it a little bit quieter for those people that have been up all night running calls. We have 11 bedrooms here at this station. And the reason we built it with so many bedrooms is we want to give ourselves as a city the opportunity to expand. So if we need to put another apparatus here or numerous other people working at this station, that's already in place as far as infrastructure goes, and we don't need to go back and try to make it bigger or better. And that's really important for us, especially because the old station was so small. Back out on the apparatus floor, we have doors facilitated as many places as possible, so that way when we're sleeping at night and a call comes out, we can make our way out fairly quickly to get out onto the truck if we need to and run a call. On the other side of the station, we kind of have other stuff that we may want to keep separated if we want to. Physical fitness is very important to us as firefighters. So in order to better ourselves and make sure we're as healthy as we can to do this job, we have our own gym facility here that we kind of go throughout the day when we can and get an opportunity to come in and work out. Our goal when we run calls, when we get back to the station after calls, our goal is to get ready to go back as soon as we can to run another call. So we have the opportunity or capability here to fill up our air tanks. You see firefighters wear the big air tanks on their backs, and they use those in a fire. We can come back and fill those up and make sure that we're ready to go again when we're wanting to go run another call. We have our own workshop here. We work on a lot of our tools and making sure that everything's clean and operational, and this gives us the capability to do that, again, to make sure that we have everything we need and we're as capable as we can be running calls throughout the city. Cancer prevention is very important in the fire service right now. Because of that, we have an extractor machine, and what this does is gives us the capability when we come back from a fire, we can put our bunker gear into this machine and get all that really nasty crud off of our gear. Again, kind of getting back to that cancer prevention mode, allowing us to be as clean as we possibly can for the next call. And finally is our bunker gear room. We each have our own individual locker. This gives us the opportunity to store our gear when we're not here working in between shifts, as well as keep a clean extra set on here in case we do run a fire and we need to clean our current gear. Typically, this is where your day starts off at the fire station. You come in and get your gear and put it on wherever you're working that day, and then you end the same way, bring your stuff back to your locker to go home after working. This is Med 3. This ambulance just currently moved into the station from Station 7. Station 3, since we've had it built, has turned into one of our busiest stations in the city. Therefore, we wanted to provide the best care in the closest unit as we could. So we moved one of our ambulances up, and this became Med 3 for this particular instance. Out of this station, we also have Pumper 3. And that's a fire apparatus that they utilize to run the calls on this west end of the city. The last vehicle that you see is the chief's vehicle. We have 2 shift chiefs on shift every day, and they split the city. And this chief running out of this station typically covers the west and south area of the city, while our chief of Station 2 covers kind of that northeast section of our city, and they divide it up evenly.
Thank you for going on a tour with us today. If you have any other questions about the Lee Summit Fire Department, please go to our webpage at lsfire.net or follow us on Facebook at Lee Summit Fire Department.
Thanks for joining us on the tour.
Traditionally, we think as police officers, those responding to law enforcement needs within the community. But honestly, we are there to serve our citizens, and our citizens do go into crisis. They do have mental health crises, and we're being called to those scenes on a regular basis. In order to help serve those citizens better, we did initiate the Crisis Intervention Team Program. These are officers that are specially trained to de-escalate crisis situations. Recently, we've brought co-responders onto the scene, licensed qualified mental health professionals housed within our police department, and they respond with those officers directly to those scenes where a crisis is occurring so they can interact with that citizen and get them the help they need right there on that scene.
The co-responders are either a bachelor or master level in a behavioral health related field. They wear plain clothes, they don't carry weapons or anything like that.
I have a police radio that I listen to all day. Listen for, those key words: mental health, behavioral health, crisis.
There's a lot of officers that just call for me. I have my own radio number.
I also have the ability to self-dispatch to them and say 982 is en route.
Officers en route, 914, Armstrong.
So typically I arrive after they've made it safe. I'll make contact and get kind of the rundown, and then I just kind of jump right in.
I'm like, hey, my name's Allison. I'm a mental health professional. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take you to jail or arrest you.
Sometimes all a person needs is a voice, someone neutral, someone outside that, can listen. I do a lot of safety planning, including family, their support network, who's close to you. If they're home alone, who can come over and hang out with you today? Can we lock away your sharps? Can we put up your meds? Do you need meds? Can we get you over to the urgent care to get you assessed for your medications? Some of them also are like, oh, I'm so glad you came. This made me feel so much better.
Our main goal as the co-responders is to, one, get people connected to the services that they need, and also divert from emergency rooms and
January 3rd meeting of Finance and Budget Committee. we're getting a little echo. Is that okay? All right. First item is roll call.
Sorry. Vice Chair Lovell?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem
Here.
Lopez?
Here. Councilmember Hodges, I believe, will be absent today. Okay. Next item is approval of the agenda. I would look for motion.
Chair, I move for approval of the agenda for December 4th, 2023, as presented. January 3rd. Oh, the agenda. My bad. I got ahead of ourselves. The agenda, as presented.
Second.
Can we get a vote on the approval of the agenda, please?
Sir, Vice Chair Lovell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Aye.
Chair Shields?
Aye. All right. Do we have public comments tonight? I think you said we had one.
Did receive one card for public comment.
If you're here for public comment, please approach the microphone.
Oh.
No worries. If you could just state your name for the record. And then
Josh Baker with Ron's Tow and Jackson County Tow. Basically, we just had a couple questions with the way that the contract is going forward. And I know this is a financial board, so my financial question would be, with the contract being awarded to a sub-company that doesn't have the capability of heavy side of it, what that's going to cost the city. And basically, that was what I didn't know how this works. So that was I was bringing up, because now they're going to have to subcontract that to another company, and the companies that we have heard have reached out to, and the way that they are basically telling us is they are going to just bill the city at their regular rates, which would not be the contracted rates. So that would be my financial question of how much is that going to cost the city more, hiring a company that can't provide 100% of the service on the financial side of the heavies. So that was it.
and I believe that would relate to item D on our agenda, the award for tow services. So is that something that when that comes up that the staff members, any of that could talk a little bit about how that works if there are services that the awardee can't provide?
PD has assured me they will be able to speak to that.
Okay. We'll try to hopefully
Awesome.
have some more information in the public record tonight for that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Do we have any other public comments?
No.
Okay. Then we will move on to item 5A, 2023-6023, approval of the December 4th, 2023 Finance and Budget Committee action letter. Mayor Pro Tem, I think you may have had a motion in your pocket for this one.
I was anxious. We're waiting for that one. Yeah, Chair, I move for approval of the December 4th Finance and Budget Committee action letter as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second for approval of 2023-6023. Can we get a vote on that, please?
Vice Chair Lovell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Aye.
Chair Shields?
Aye. All right, that passes. Next item is TMP 2879, an ordinance establishing compensation allowances for mayor, council members, mayor pro tem, and municipal judges with the city of Lee Summit, Missouri. Ms. Wortleman.
Hello. Betty Wortleman, Finance Director. This ordinance is to establish some new compensation levels for the elected officials of the city of Lee Summit. If passed, these new levels would take effect on May 1st of 2026 because council members are prohibited by law from approving salaries during their existing term of office. The compensation allowances for elected officials were last revised in March of 2016 with an effective date of May 1st of 2018, so it has been a while. The charter establishes that the council can determine the compensation levels for all elected officials. As I said, state law restricts elected officials from increasing their own compensation during their current term of office. That's why the delayed effective date. And the ordinance also sets compensation for car allowances and communications, also known as cell phones. So if this was passed, the existing compensation levels and allowances would remain in effect until May 1st of 2026, and then these changes would take effect at that time if passed. The proposed rates reflect an approximate annual 3% inflationary adjustment as shown in exhibit to the document.
Ms. Wordleman, so we had discussed this in kind of a just proposed discussion at our last meeting, I believe. So if there's any questions, happy to entertain those. I think this is pretty much what we had discussed, just kind of, as Ms. Wordleman said, that this hasn't been adjusted for several years, so just kind of adjusting for a cost of living increased inflation, basically. So, do you have any questions? For motion.
Chair, I move to recommend to City Council approval of agenda item number TMP 2879, an ordinance establishing compensation allowances for the mayor, council members, mayor pro tem, and municipal judges with the City of Lee Summit, Missouri.
Second.
Here we have a motion and a second on item TMP 2879. Can we get a vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lovell,
Aye.
Chair Shields.
Aye. Passes on to council. Next item is TMP 2880, an ordinance approving the 2024 Jackson County Board of Election Commissioners poll contracts for the Lovell Community Center, Harris Park Community Center, Longview Community Center, and Gamber Center, and authorizing the Administrator of Parks and Recreation to execute the same by and on behalf of the city.
Hello, Betty Wertelman, Finance Director again. Crystal Weber had worked on this particular thing. This is an annually, well, it occurs every time there are elections, and the Jackson County Board of Election Commissioners typically wishes to use a lot of our community centers for voting locations. So this would authorize contracts with the various parks community centers to use as balloting locations.
Do we have any questions from the committee? None, I would entertain a motion.
Chair. I move to recommend for approval to City Council TMP-2880, an ordinance approving the 2024 Jackson County Board of Election Commissioners poll contracts for the Lovell Community Center, Harris Park Community Center, Longview Community Center, and the Gamber Center, and authorizing the Administrator of Parks and Recreation to execute the same by and on behalf of the city.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on TMP 2880. Can we get a vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lovell,
Aye.
Chair Shields.
Aye. All right, that item passes as well. Next is item TMP 2822, an ordinance approving the award of RFP number 2024-022 for tow services for a one-year term with up to 4 one-year renewals to James R. McCoy LLC, DBA Jim's Tow Service, as the primary awardee, and Ron's Auto and Tow Truck Towing LLC as the secondary awardee, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same by and on behalf of the city.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kerry Coline, Operations Major with the Lee Summit Police Department, and Ms. Shearhart from Procurement is also with me to answer any questions that may come up. The item before you is the city tow contract, as you mentioned, RFP 2024-022. It contains the ordinance awarding this RFP to Jim's Tow as the primary awardee and Ron's Tow as the secondary awardee. This provides for the towing of city vehicles when needed and the towing of citizens' vehicles on the scene of accidents and other incidents when they don't have a preferred tow provider. Just some background on the current city contract. It was awarded to Ron's Tow in 2019. It was a one-year contract with the possibility of 4 one-year renewals. All those renewals were executed, and this is set to expire on January 31st of 2024. Some methodology on how we got to where we are today. We began research in the summer of 2023 into the current contract and potential areas of improvement. The research team identified the following areas of focus: rates, technology, oversight, and a secondary provider. A little bit about rates. The research team received feedback that the current contract rates, as a result from the previous bid system of awarding the contract, were below industry standards, which could potentially impact service. The team found that a number of the surrounding jurisdictions were setting their own rates as opposed to the traditional bid system. The rates of 7 comparator cities were studied, and an average was taken to establish the rates for this RFP. Our goal, obviously, is to ensure quality service while still protecting the citizens in the city. and the team recommended a 3% escalator added yearly to adjust for market trends and keep the rates competitive. Technology, any tows performed for the city up to this point or at the request of the city were previously managed through tow slips. So the ride, officers ride on the carbon copies. I lost my vocabulary there because I haven't dealt with them for so long. And just an antiquated way of doing things. This process required manual entry and tracking, which results in delays and errors. Tow slips were hard to read, sometimes lost. So the current RFP requires software packages that allow for the electronic tracking of not only any charges associated to a tow, but also the arrival time of the tow and other data. Provides for a much more efficient process and for oversight. Oversight and secondary provider I added together here, as previously mentioned. The new technology will provide increased ability to monitor and track changes or charges and the performance of the tow provider. Regular reporting will be required to the Public Safety Advisory Board regarding the performance of the tow provider. A secondary awardee was added to this process, which is unique from previous bid system. The secondary awardee could be activated should the primary awardee fail to meet the terms of the contract. So the RFP process itself, after meeting with procurement and kind of going over what our goals were in those 4 focus areas, an RFP process was recommended. Prior to moving forward, the process was presented to the tow committee and the full Public Safety Advisory Board, who voted unanimously to support the new process. Procurement and Contract Services issued the RFP with a due date of October 20th, 2023. A bid was posted on the city's e-procurement service public purchase as well as the city's internet. 29 suppliers were notified via email and public purchase. 13 suppliers accessed the RFP and 5 proposals were received. All the submissions were considered responsive and all respondents' tow lots were located within the established 20-mile radius from City Hall. That was a bid requirement established by the tow committee. Submissions were scored by a team consisting of members from the Police Department and the Fleet Division. James R. McCoy, LLC received the top score, with Ron's Auto and Tow Truck Towing, LLC receiving the second highest score. Public Safety Advisory Board's tow committee met on 11/16 to consider the recommendation of the evaluation team and unanimously supported the recommendation of awarding James R. McCoy, LLC as the primary provider and Ron's Auto Tow and Truck Towing as LLC as the secondary provider, and presented to the Public Safety Advisory Board. During the meeting, all 5 submissions were reviewed and discussed. Tow committee recommendation was presented to the full Public Safety Advisory Board at the November 21st, 2023 meeting. The PSAB unanimously supported and recommended the award to James R. McCoy, LLC, doing business as Jim's Tow Service, as the primary awardee, and Ron's Auto and Tow Truck Towing, LLC, as the secondary awardee. I had it open for questions here, but I have one more slide I kind of would like to go over, and I might be able to answer the question that was asked through this too. This is a rate comparison that I put together that shows the previous contract rates and also the new proposed contract rates for this RFP. You'll notice the first 2 lines are highlighted. That's because they didn't exist in the previous schedule of fees. We found through our research that most jurisdictions were separating out the different kinds of accidents by type, or different kind of tows by type. So you'll see tow for a non-accident, tow for a city-owned vehicle, and then any accident-related tows. It went up a little bit for the tow for a non-accident and for the city-owned vehicle, but you can see the major price increases, and where we found we were below market value was for accident scenes. The majority of the time, those are more labor-intensive. Vehicles have to be moved, sites have to be cleaned per the contract. Oil dry has to be put down, et cetera. So I wanted to share that so you could kind of see where our major adjustments. Other areas adjusted as well, but not nearly as significantly as those. And to answer the question, if I understand it correctly, down here you'll see under additional equipment, we have the rate at fair market value, which is that's also the rate for any equipment, like I believe he's talking about fire trucks or commercial motor vehicles, of things of that nature. Mr. Stinson, the fleet manager, traditionally has used private providers for that to provide the service, and those are just fairly negotiated market values things. For semis and other, I'd kind of defer to you on the question of the subcontractors.
Dee Dee Shearhart, Senior Procurement Officer. Jim's Tow does have a secondary supplier that we can utilize for the large apparatus, and it is All City Tow. They do have an office in Independence, and their main base is in Kansas City, Kansas. But it's my understanding that Fleet does a fair market, and there are a selected few suppliers that we call on for the large apparatus, like a fire engine, ambulance, and we could utilize that for semis as well.
So would it be the same process if it was not a city vehicle? So if it was like a you talked about earlier, if someone needs a tow and they don't have a preferred provider, so the city is the one that's hooking them up with this, if it was a semi-truck, would it be the same process of reaching out to those vetted vendors, or however you're putting it? Okay. Questions from the committee? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Just as a follow-up to your question, for that last component of additional equipment for larger vehicles, in the previous contract, current contract, what has been the rate and what has been the process for that?
The rates are listed up there, and it's the exact same process that we will use for this contract. If there was a large apparatus, Ron's does have a large capacity towing vehicle, if you want to phrase it that way, and they have towed them for us in the past, but we have used other suppliers as well, and it's usually the call is instigated by our fleet manager.
Following up on that, so you said it's on the chart, but it just says NA skid steer specified at 95.55. What does that mean, the previous rate for that additional equipment at the bottom there? Put that in English for me.
Yes, ma'am. So my chart here compares the previous contract schedule to the new one. So under additional equipment, under the old contract, skid steer was the only thing that was specified as. It was the only additional equipment that was listed. That was the one from 2019. In this one, we're adding additional equipment, but also putting it at fair market value. And the contract itself makes an exception for commercial motor vehicles and crashes like that, that the rates are negotiated at fair market value as well. So if that makes sense.
So the prior contract just didn't cover things like semi-trucks or fire trucks, or no?
If I'm not mistaken, it simply said fair market value was what was negotiated.
Well, just trying to reflect back on the public comments. There's nothing when we issue this, if, I don't know, was it mostly focused on the heavier equipment, or was it just in general, like if we have a contract with Jim's Tow, we don't really care what party goes to pick it up. So like if they don't have the vehicle to go pick up a tow non-accident or whatever, we're still getting charged that rate.
Yes, sir. Are you talking about the city when you say we, or do you mean private citizens, or what do you?
Well, I assume this is all based on the city, so when we're having to have stuff
Yeah,
towed,
so
right?
if we have a tow that's a non-accident related, the rate is $80. But if we have a specialty vehicle, such as a pumper or a fire truck or something like that, then that is usually determined by the fleet manager with assistance by fire who they're going to call to tow that apparatus. So, and I confirmed that with the fleet manager prior to composing this.
Without further context from the public comments, I mean, it seems like we went through a number of different processes to arrive at awarding this contract.
We did. Yes, sir.
I have any other questions, but thanks, Chair.
Further questions? I would entertain a motion.
Chair. I move to recommend for approval to City Council TMP-2822, an ordinance approving the award of RFP number 2024-022 for tow services for 1 year with up to 4 one-year renewals to James R. McCoy, LLC, DBA Jim's Tow Service as a primary awardee, and Ron's Auto and Tow Trucks Towing, LLC, as a secondary awardee, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same buy-in on behalf of the city.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to recommend TMP 2822 to council for approval. Can we get a vote, please?
Vice Chair Lovell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Aye.
Chair Shields?
Aye. That passes. And for the gentleman who came today for public comment, I would just let you know this is going to our full city council. So if you have additional public comments, you're welcome to come to a council meeting and speak during public comment time then as well. This won't be finally enacted until it goes through the full city council. Letting you know. Next item is TMP 2890, an ordinance approving amendment number 7 to the budget for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2024, is adopted by ordinance number 9704, ordinance number 9705, ordinance number 9706, ordinance number 9707, and ordinance number 9708 by amending the authorized expenditures for the city. Mr. Gentry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rick Gentry, Budget Manager. Item before you this evening is a budget amendment number 7 to the FY24 fiscal year budget. We just have a few items included in this amendment. First is the council approved the expedited purchase of a command vehicle last month for the police department. It's because we put the updated procurement policy, so as opportunities arise to purchase vehicles because of the supply chain issues with vehicles, that we can move forward with that purchase, and that purchase was approved at the December 12th meeting. This is approving the funds and use of funds in the public safety sales tax to make that purchase and transfer those to the fleet fund, so then become part of the VERP program. The police department has realized vacancy savings due to not being able to fill all the positions that were being funded by the public safety sales tax, so they'll be using vacancy savings from the public safety sales tax fund to cover that purchase. The next item is a additional patrol vehicle. Again, they're using some of the vacancy savings and identified in this year's budget to cover that. And again, we need to move those funds from the public safety sales tax fund to the fleet fund, and then the purchase will occur through the fleet fund and become part of the VERP program. The next item is entitled revenue. We typically don't bring revenues, but this is a significant sale of land. The property at Tudor, or multiple tracks along Tudor and Douglas intersection, across from the police station there. Recognize that revenue, the $485,000. We'll be increasing the general fund revenues by that amount, and also like to increase the finance authorized expenditures for that amount. Because what we'd like to do is then transfer those funds from the general fund. We have to expense it against something, so we'll expense it against the finance department and transfer that money to the Green Street Improvement Fund and increase the authorized funds within that, expenditures within that fund for the continued development and construction of the downtown market plaza. So with that, if there's any questions.
Questions from the committee?
Was that something that we had decided that we were doing, or like we had already planned to take that money from that sale to go to the general reserve fund, and just making sure that I'm thinking about it correctly?
From my,
like, it just because you're saying we made that sale, it's going in the general reserve fund, and now we're taking that and reallocating it to the expense towards the downtown market budget or whatever.
Yeah,
I think
it was a general fund asset, so that's why it's going to the general fund, and then
earmarking it towards the market center.
Is your question whether the council previously authorized?
Yeah,
this?
like I feel like we've talked about that, and now this has actually happened, and versus us just saying, yeah, let's just move it over there. I feel like we had kind of earmarked that money towards that fund, and then
that's my understanding, that the council, I believe in closed session, possibly had taken action on the real estate side of this. And so this is to formalize the budget side of it.
Gotcha. Okay. Just making sure before we assign it to something that we had kind of made that commitment to do it. All right, thanks. That's it. Chair, I move to recommend to City Council approval agenda item number TMP 2890, an ordinance approving amendment number 7 to the budget for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2024, as adopted by ordinance number 9704, ordinance number 9705, ordinance number 9706, ordinance number 9707, and ordinance number 9708 by amending the authorized expenditures for the city.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to recommend TMP 2890 to council for approval. Can we get a vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lovell?
Aye.
Chair Shields?
Aye. All right, that passes. Next item is TMP 2895, an ordinance approving the execution of an addendum to the Memorandum of Understanding between the Kansas Bureau of Investigation and the City of Lee Summit for the use of Midwest High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Award Funds and authorizing the mayor to execute the same on behalf of the city.
Good evening, John Bunker, Deputy Chief of the Police Department. This is a grant actually that has already closed, but typically we don't see this, but in this situation, the funder, the KBI, had leftover funds in that 22 grant. So what we're coming back to do is add this amount of $625.51 to that previous grant so that we can expend those funds. The funds will be used for primarily fuel supplies for that detective that's assigned to that task force. So.
Do we have any questions? Keep bringing us free money. It's great. Yeah. So
right.
I would look
Take
for
every
a
dollar.
Exactly. I would look for a motion, please.
Chair.
Yes.
I move to recommend for approval to City Council TMP-2895, an ordinance approving the execution of an addendum to the Memorandum of Understanding between the Kansas Bureau of Investigations and the City of Lee Summit for the use of Midwest High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Award Funds and authorizing the mayor to execute the same on behalf of the city.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on TMP 2895 to recommend to council for approval. Could we get a vote, please?
Vice Chair Lovell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Aye.
Chair Shields?
Aye. All right, that passes. Next item on our agenda is roundtable. Do we have any roundtable from members of the committee?
Happy New Year.
Do we have any roundtable from staff?
Yes, just a couple of items to mention. Next week on the January 9th City Council agenda, you will see a resolution authorizing our first issuance under our $186 million bond authorization that was approved by voters last year. We're bringing forward a resolution that would allow issuance of up to $30 million going to market for that. We are planning a competitive bid this time around as opposed to the private placements we've done over the last couple of years. And a big part of that is the size of the issuance and also just the timing of it and the current market conditions. The $30 million that we're looking at, again, it is up to $30 million. We may not issue the full amount, but your packet will include a list of the projects that we plan to hit on initially with this funding. It will be spread over all three of the ballot topics, not evenly, but it is hitting on all three ballot topics. The second item, at our next Finance and Budget Committee meeting, which is scheduled for February 5th, we will have our audit presentation, annual audit presentation. That has been completed now, so you'll get to see the results of all that at that time.
We're all excited. Yes. Hey, it's a big topic for finance and budget. All right. Seeing no further discussion, we will go ahead and adjourn at 4:34.